thoughts going on in our head, then our presence leaks. It leaks out. We're not fully present with them. We're not in the moment with them, giving them our full selves. And because of that, we're really easy to run over.
Our ever-changing world calls upon the most courageous, resilient, and relentless of us to face its most extraordinary challenges. To help you embark on this journey, we present the Impactful Coaching Podcast, your oasis for inspiration and a beacon to spark the fires of greatness within you. I'm Joseph. I will be your ally in this journey to empower your potential. Join us each week as we dive deep into the heart of ambition, drive, and success to unravel compelling stories of daring leaders who dreamed, struggled, and achieved victory. Our journey begins now. How's everybody doing? My name is Joseph, and welcome back to the Impactful Coaching Podcast, the podcast where we show coaches what other coaches are up to in the space, so you can all get to know each other. And by the way, for those of you who are interested in connecting with coaches, you can always email me, joseph@impactfulcoachingpodcast.com, in case you want to be personally connected with anybody, whether that you are looking to work with one or you're one yourself. Whatever the case is, I am spiritually a spider, and so I love my networking. I'm here today with Lynn Kirkham of YesYouCanSpeakNow.com. Lynn, it is, of course, great to meet you. I think this was like an Italian thing, because I remember some of my people in Italy would say this, that we're really good at like mirroring energy, but we don't necessarily have like our own, like, I don't know, like I always saw my energy was more like stoic and kind of calm and reserved, but you and I had a chance to just chat a little bit before we started recording, and your energy is magnanimous. It's something that I can't quite resist wanting to mirror and wanting to reflect off of. So it is great to share this hour with you. Question zero, like, is how are you doing today? How are you feeling?
Oh my gosh, you just made my day. Thank you, Joseph.
That's what I do.
Aw, I'm doing great. Doing great. And I just love you, and I love your podcast.
Thank you.
And we're going to have a great conversation.
Looking forward to it. So first things first is to share with the audience what you do in the space, what you're up to these days.
Oh my gosh. So my mission is to help even the most shy and introverted people find their voice, whether it's in a one-on-one conversation or in front of 10,000 people. And I do that faster than anybody I've ever seen, which is really cool, because we go in deep. We go deep and figure out what the root cause is, so that every human being on the planet can say what they're meant to say. Because I believe that we were born with a purpose for being here. And if we end up not speaking what that purpose is, we end up at 90 years old going, oh, I wish I would have. And so everything I do is around bringing what's real and true for people to the surface, so they can speak from their heart and really move themselves and move others.
It's a wonderful answer to the question, and it's important for me to absorb that properly before jumping into the next question, which is something that I'm personally trying to work on. And what sticks out to me is there is a lot of course, pressure when on stage speaking in front of 1,000 people. It's totally understandable to face intense anxiety when dealing with that. I think very few people are naturally suited to that environment, and even the most naturally suited person is still feeling something, but they take that energy and they run with it, and they know how to communicate with that energy. But what sticks out to me is those more intimate settings where maybe people are just trying to speak with their family or trying to speak up at work with coworkers that they've known for a long time. So I'd like to hear about that side of it. Is what prompts somebody to seek out a coach for needing help on something that is on that more personal and intimate scale?
You know, a lot of people come to me that they've got great ideas. They're at work, they're in a meeting, and all of a sudden, you know, there's this opening for them to say something, to share their ideas, and they hesitate. They hesitate. Is it good enough? Am I good enough? Am I going to say it right? Are they going to get it? What are they going to think of me? And so then the moment passes, the moment passes, and then somebody else shares an idea that was very similar to theirs or something different, and then the meeting goes in a totally different direction. And so they come to me for that, or they'll come to me with family situations. I can't share my truth with my spouse, or I don't have a good relationship with my kids, and I can't say what I mean, and they always take it the wrong way. And so they come to me for that. And what we unearth, the real reasons why they can't speak in a meeting, or why they can't speak to their spouse or their kids in a way that feels open and warm and kind, and empathetic. And typically, Joseph, it's around things that happened in their past. It's about hurtful moments. It's about traumatic moments. It's about being shut down when they did have an idea to share, and maybe somebody close to them just, poo-pooed it,
Mm-hmm.
or dismissed them, or didn't listen. And there's a piece of them that broke in that moment. And when we have those pieces of us break, it's like a part of our soul goes, like, gets stuck in that moment. And
Mm-hmm.
and then we're in another situation that's somewhat similar, and that moment is triggered in our nervous system. And then the second guessing happens. And it could start from, having a parent that was really hard on them, and maybe wouldn't listen to them, or wouldn't believe them, or didn't feel like they were smart enough. And that gets triggered in that moment of talking to an authority figure. What's interesting is that, our parents or older siblings or relatives that are older than us are authority figures to us. So we can be, we can have a sibling that's a year older. Well, they're an authority figure. And when we've had trauma, when we've had those disappointing moments where we felt really small, then we can be at work, and it has nothing to do with mom or dad or our sibling, but we can be at work, and boom, it's triggered. That thing that happened when you were 5 years old is triggered in your nervous system, and you just shut down. And that's our limbic brain kicking in to just protect us. And so we go in deep to figure out exactly what happened and eliminate the root causes.
For my longtime listeners or consistent listeners, the idea of recognizing a surface issue as an indicator of something that is occurring on the subconscious or the unconscious level has come up. And it's a brilliant theme that I was really glad that we got to explore it in a lot of different ways. So, do you have a particular skill set that you deploy in order to work your way down into the person's inner layers?
I do. I do. For 25 years, I studied psychology, and I was using the traditional methods, EFT, NLP, and several others. And I worked with my clients and myself using those methods, and they were great, and they definitely took the edge off. But I found that they kept coming back. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, shoot, I need another session. I need another session. I need another session. I'm like, I don't want that. I want people to come to me, and then we clear it at the root. And so every single time I was with someone, I just prayed that I would be shown a way to take the whole onion out rather than just peeling the layers. And one day I was shown how to do it, and I've been doing it ever since. And it's quite amazing. It's called Core Repatterning,
Mm-hmm.
Core Repatterning. And in 4 sessions, for the average person, we identify 25 different life events or limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't belong. We rate them on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being neutral, 10 being panic or high emotion. And then we eliminate them. And it typically takes about 15 minutes to let go of a very, very long-standing traumatic event. And what's really cool is that, it's 4 90-minute sessions, so it's super, super fast.
Mhm.
And what's really great is that sometimes people get so busy that they don't book their last session, because they're feeling good and they don't book it for months. And I had somebody once who took 7 months to book his last session. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope everything's still okay, because I didn't know.
Mhm.
And so I said, would you mind if we go through every single thing that you've already cleared, which was about 20 different life events, and let me know how you're feeling about it. So I took him back and he relived the moments and he's like, zero, 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 zero. I feel great about all those. So it's really, I don't know. I feel so grateful that I found a way
Mhm.
to make what seems to be a permanent shift in a lot of people's lives.
So a couple of things started forming in my mind that are unique to this conversation. And when you mentioned that a part of ourselves are stuck in that past moment, and that those selves then reconnect with us in the present out of a sense of fear, it I visualized our life's timeline as a singular track, and then I visualized phantoms of us, just like ghostly apparitions that remain at parts of this timeline that over time, if are not addressed, the it continues to disconnect who we are in the present. And then the ramifications of this can be quite serious, because I think the more a person is disconnected and more of ourselves are left behind in a past state, the more people start wishing to reconnect with that. And one of the ways to do that would actually be to take our own lives. That feeling of everything coming back together and that release and that transformation. So I think that to me is, and not speaking, I'm not credentialed, so just keep, stipulated, but that to me is probably one of the most serious things that can happen with that continuous loss, where little parts of us are stuck and left behind in it. And I'd like to share one of these with you. I've shared it on the program maybe once or twice, and it's something that I continue to actively work on, and I'd love to hear your I guess your feedback on. So in high school, some of our friends were very talkative, and I was more like start stop. I was always a very good listener, and what would happen is I would take my turn to say my piece, and the moment I would pause or hesitate, even slightly, somebody else would just like jump in and start talking, and I wasn't done my thought. Right? I'm trying to, like, I'm setting up a joke, and I didn't do the punchline. And so that became very frustrating. And what ended up happening is I overcorrected, and I review the content that I do for this program, which thank you to the producers for letting me do that. And I notice that when I'm lacking in presence, that the stutters come out, the filler words come out, the comes out. It does help to have someone like you who is an expert in the space to slow down and focus on my thoughts and make sure that I'm communicating as effectively as I'm capable of. But that wasn't really a trauma, right? But that was just like a series of small incidents that created a pattern that built up over time, and it has not been easy to get over. But it would really helpful to get over it, because I kind of need to be better at the job in order to elevate my platform. So I don't necessarily think it's always about these significant traumas. I think the death by 1,000 cuts method is also perfectly legit.
I so agree with you. Absolutely. I grew up very shy and introverted myself, and I would be in a group and I would listen. I would just listen because I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't think I was good enough to contribute. I got 1,000 cuts too.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like such and I had this identity of being shy, right? You add that in because shy people don't speak, they just listen. And it just held me back. So, in the work that we do, we could take those 1,000 cuts of where you hesitated and you were run over by somebody, and then your moment was gone, and it made you feel hurt. or insignificant, or like you didn't matter, what you had to say didn't matter. We can take those and let them all go. So thank you for bringing that up, because no, it doesn't have to be a huge trauma at all. It can be something that, other people might think was really, really minor,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody's different. Everybody is so different. We're wired differently. And we create these patterns like you did and like I did. We created this pattern of hesitation and second guessing and not getting it all out. When we've got that thing going in our head where, are they getting me? Do they like me? Do they like what I'm saying? Am I making a difference? Um, when we've got those kinds of thoughts going on in our head, then our presence leaks. It leaks out. We're not fully present with them. We're
Mm-hmm.
not in the moment with them, giving them our full selves. And because of that, we're really easy to run over.
What I would like to ask in reflecting on this is how much of the work is personal and introspective, and then how much of it, now mind you, this is probably a case by case basis, but how much of it is also about reframing and having a new understanding of the exterior, who were the causes of it, whether they were the authority figures or our trusted friends or our peers or our colleagues. Because I think it's as much of it is important for us to shed our old skin and rebuild ourselves. Or I think it's also pretty important to have a different understanding of how we perceive this other person, and not necessarily make it all about ourselves, because I don't know if that is also a sustainable method to always say like, oh, if other people have affected me in some way, but it's probably my fault somehow. So where's that balance in how we understand ourselves and how we understand others?
For me, it's if we can be connected with ourselves, like the whole part of us, and be connected to that wholeness within the person in front of us, then we can relate in a way that creates something bigger. And as soon as we start judging them or judging ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
then the disconnect happens, and we lose our power, and we might give all of our power away to them, or we might railroad them, because in that moment we feel like we need to feel something that we're not feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question?
Well, there was a takeaway that I extracted from it, which is also the importance of empathizing and put ourselves in their position as well, to realize that this is another individual human being who's probably dealing with their own set of conflicts and issues. And so instead of painting them as an avatar where they're specifically the cause of certain issues, they are also a complicated human being who may be causing this for their own reasons, which they need to work on, but that part is not our problem.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's no human on the planet that hasn't been hurt a lot. A
Mm-hmm.
lot. It's part of the experience here. And we express it in different ways. And what I've found is that if we're perceiving somebody as difficult or argumentative or someone that we just don't like,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't trust. It's really a matter of trust, right? So we don't trust this person. What happens typically is that we put our guard up. We put our guard up, and then we're really in our head, and we're not in our body. We're not in our presence. We're not in a whole state. And in that moment, they feel uncomfortable, and they've got their double guard up.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this combat that can happen, or this just discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
great discomfort that can happen. So what I always try to do in those moments, and I'm not always successful, but just noticing, number one, is my guard up? Is my heart open? And if my guard is up and my heart is closed, because that's what happens as soon as we put our guard up, then, I breathe and intend for it to come down. And, I may do something like, oh, ho'oponopono, like, those four simple statements. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you,
Mm-hmm.
which might be difficult to say to somebody that you're not trusting. But what happens, and if you say that over and over and over again, it just releases something inside where there is that connection. And as soon as the guard is down, then that person will likely treat you differently.
Mm-hmm.
There will be more kindness and more connection on their part too, because in human interactions, most of us are kind of looking and analyzing. Can I trust this person? Can I trust you? I don't know if I can. So until you prove to me that I can trust you, I'm going to have my guard up.
Mm-hmm.
And what I teach a lot of my students is walk in with your guard down and just trust them. Just trust. And because if you don't, then you're 90% more likely to have this happen,
Mm-hmm.
have that conflict happen.
I appreciate you having bringing the term having your guard up into this, because something in particular that I wanted to expand on. I'm looking at a quote on the site, which is, together we'll identify and clear out your defense mechanisms to eliminate your fear of public speaking and social anxiety for good. And no other program does this. And the concept of guard and defensiveness is something that has personally impacted me for a long time, for good and for bad. So the good side of it is that in certain configurations, like say in soccer, you need defensemen. I mean, you need a keeper to protect the ball from getting in the net, but then you also need people who are positioned to protect that back line and not put all the pressure on the goalie. So, and I learned through playing soccer a bit is that I wasn't a very good striker, but I was an excellent defenseman, center defenseman. And then in other games, there are times where you are on protection duty. You are helping your allies rather than focusing on defeating your opponents. So that's the good side of it. The bad side of it is that I personally have this heightened sense of feeling attacked, which ends up with a lot from time to time someone saying you're being defensive right now, and I don't know if I'm being gaslit. I don't know if I just have this heightened sense of identifying an attack, or maybe I'm overprotecting, or I'm noticing something that they're not noticing, because I think aggression and an offensive behavior, not offensive like saying inappropriate things, but just like kind of people stepping into somebody else's boundaries. I think that's a very normalized behavior. You see that a lot in male culture, because a lot of how us guys interact is a lot of status wars, where we're trying to put each other down, mostly for laughter, but behind that, the subconscious is that trying to climb the status hierarchy and to be on the top. I'm not a fan of it, but if I were to recuse myself of those environments, I would have no one to talk to. So it's something that I have to put up with. Now that's just the preamble. The question to contextualize this in a way that makes sense is, where is it ideal and helpful and healthy to be on guard, if that's even a thing? Or do you find that it has consistently been a symptom of something that needs to be corrected?
Good question.
Thank you.
I feel like we all need to set really good boundaries, period. I mean, we need to feel the self-respect from others. We need to give it to ourselves, and we need to feel it from others. So to have enough self-respect to set a boundary is really, really key. And to just let people know when they've crossed that boundary is appropriate. Absolutely. And you can do it in a kind but clear way.
I think the boundaries is the key factor in all of this, is whether or not we understand and are properly maintaining our boundaries, but also knowing when we're maybe going a little too far with our boundaries and it's starting to get beyond what our lines are and entering other people's space. Like if I enter a room and like, no,
Got
you
it.
can't
Got
even,
it.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's having empathy,
yeah.
right? So being connected enough. So I think that's where it all stems from is, you know, are we connected to our wholeness and to our heart? And are we connected to the other people? And do we care? Right? So if there's no caring and there's only boundaries, well, that pushes the envelope way too far.
Mm-hmm.
So having that combination of presence and empathy along with setting the boundaries, I think is really important. And it's those people who just don't care about anyone else, but they just want to climb,
Mm-hmm.
just want to get on top no matter what. Well, I think they're hurting a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be great for them to have enough presence of mind to rethink how they show up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd love to get your take on this because this is a personal theory that I've been working on, but I think a lot of that particular behavior is actually in line with addiction. So addiction boils down to chasing something for a chemical release, oftentimes at the expense of our overall well-being. And I do believe that it is possible to be socially addicted to belittling others and putting down others for our own sense of inflated ego. And that might be great, might make you feel good for a day or two at the most, but it damages relationships in the long term. So I think that there needs to be a lot of work done in that space, and as well is to recognize that not all addictions come in the form of a drug or flashing lights on a screen. A lot of our addictions are actually just how we navigate our environment and how we seem to want to chase satisfaction and ignore the costs involved.
Yes, we're addicted to emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us are addicted to being angry. Some of us are addicted to anxiety. Some of us are addicted to that rush, of getting to an appointment on time, right? So you could have left 5 minutes earlier, but instead you left right in the nick of time that if you make every stoplight, you're going to get there on time.
Yeah.
And, your heart's beating out of your chest, but it's an addiction. All of these emotions that we have often are addictive emotions. So yeah, it's fascinating. And I think the more we can come home to ourselves and the more we can be in a state of stillness, and I love coming to that state by using breathwork practices. And, if you can come home, really home to yourself, and you feel like you're in your body, you're in your heart, and then there's this expansiveness that is bigger than you. It's so lovely. It's this place of stillness and peace and like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that all there is feeling. If we can come back to that place more often, I think that with a clear intention to live there more often, then I think we can one by one let go of that addictive emotional behavior that we crave.
I used to see my dad do when I was living with my parents is that he would just sit in the living room with the lights off. And I didn't understand it as a kid, but then around like 27, 28, I started doing that myself. Just turn off the lights, sit in the chair, and just like put my head back. And yeah, just that stillness. I wouldn't go so far as to call it pure meditation, but it was a reflective and contemplative state that allowed my brain to just talk to me and say, here's what I'm thinking about. Here's what I want to reflect on. And so, yeah, I've really grown to appreciate just sitting with my head back with the lights off for not just minutes at a time. Sometimes I go up to like 30 minutes for an hour. So I really appreciate being able to do something like that and having the time to do it too.
Yes, and it feels like a luxury, but it's thinking time too. So it may not be meditation, but it's one-on-one time with yourself without all the other distractions so that your creative genius can flow in.
Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to ask about were is in the vein of case studies, and consistently some people are fine with sharing names, but I never expect that. So if they need to remain anonymous, that's all good. But one of the things that I had made peace with after going to therapy was that I couldn't go to therapy expecting to be a transformed person, but to receive tools that would help me work on my issues. So then that way over time, I would have more, I guess, like muscle memory built up and more strength built up to handle these issues easier. And what I'm asking about is if it's really possible to create that palpable change in somebody where they almost do become a new version of themselves, like a version 2.0. So in the clients that you've worked with, do you have anybody along those lines who have been some of the most significant changes that you've really seen in somebody?
Oh my gosh, so many, countless. So, and my program's 3 months, by the way. So it's
Mm-hmm.
a month of doing that very deep introspective work where we let go of all the pain. And then there's 2 months of group classes where the environment is so safe, where it's kind of like, you mentioned playing soccer. It's kind of like being a part of a soccer team.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the coach, and everything is like high vibe, and I believe in you, and we're going to do this together. And it's such an expanded place for people to be that within usually within the first day somebody will pop, and there might be 25 people in the room, and by the next day 2 or 3 others will pop. Pop meaning they're finding their voice. They're all of a sudden their fear is gone, and they're like, what the heck is happening here? By the fourth class, which is my level 1 program, every single person finds their voice every single time. It's unbelievable. I say I've got a 98% success rate, but it's really higher than that. And for example, there was somebody that came to me, her name's Roseanne, and she came to me about 10 years ago, and she's just like, oh my God, I can't even speak up in a meeting, and it's just awful. And when I do, I lose my train of thought. I stumble. I mumble. I I get so red, and I just want to run out of the room. And so we, went through her whole life and figured out, oh, these are the key issues, or these are the key reasons. These are the things that happen to you that are causing you to have all of these symptoms. And she let those go. So that was great. And then she went into the group program, and she did really, really well. The first day, most of my programs are done online now, but when she came, we were doing them in person.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, and I remember her, there were a couple poles in the room, or supports in the room. And she said, I came in and I took the chair next to the pole so that I could hide behind it. Like it was that intimidating for her.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the second class, she's like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I'm fine being out in the open. Anyway, fast forward to, she was halfway through the second program. I have one program called Speak Like a Pro. The second program, the second 4 weeks, is called Lead Like a Pro. She was halfway through there, and she was told that, and she had been given, let me say, back up and say she had been giving the opening segment of the all hands meetings. And it was just awful for her. They were Monday mornings, and she didn't sleep all weekend. And then she got there and she mumbled and stumbled, and it was the worst part of her job. She just hated it. And by the time she was halfway through level 2, her all hands meetings were so engaging that the president of the company made them mandatory. So every single person in the company had to go to them because of her. Fast forward a month, she was at a conference and there were a couple hundred people in the room, and the speaker wasn't going to show. It was 5 minutes before the speaker was to be on stage, and she got tapped on the shoulder. And they said, Rosanna, the speaker's not coming. Will you do it? And she's like, okay, all right. What am I talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And she literally went up to the stage and got on there, and she spoke for an hour. And she just trusted. She was so present with her heart and what it was that the company wanted her to convey. And she was so present with the audience that she became a channel of speaking that was really, really inspiring.
You know, what I find personally, what I find amusing if I were in her shoes is the difference between having only 5 minutes to get ready for an hour-long speech versus, say, having the weeks or even months that might lead up to it, is how that would change both my expectations for it, but how it would also change the audience expectations. I feel like, you never know until you're tested, right? But I feel like if I were just told I got 5 minutes, I don't know if I would feel nervous, because like what could people expect from me? I got a 5 minutes notice. I'm going to talk to 1,000 people. I'm just going to go out there and just see what happens. It's just, in a situation like that, I feel like I would just have fun with it. Whereas I feel like if I had all that time to really put together a cohesive narrative, that's where the pressure would kick in. Because if I have, let's just say, accumulatively 186 hours to prepare for it, but then I only spend 25 hours for it, I would kick myself over those hours that I didn't spend preparing for it, and then I get up on stage and have that war within myself of, is this going the way I expect it to, versus what do the audience think of it?
Yeah, there is that too. There is that too. And what I know about her is that she would have said no. Like, there's no way she could have done it beforehand. So when you have a lot of time to prepare, and for most people who are afraid of getting in front, they put it off, because the anxiety is just too intense. They'd rather just kick back and watch a TV show or do anything but prepare. And, I've seen so many speakers on TEDx stages. I'm the TEDx Berkeley speaker coach and have been for many years. And I'll prepare people to speak in front of 2,000, and they come in, a lot of them come in just knocking at their knees. And by the time they get on that stage, they're like, I don't know what happened, but it was great. Yeah.
Well, it's funny too that you mentioned procrastination. And I think a lot of that actually comes from getting used to, at an early age, having to do things on a time limit because of school. It's not one assignment, it's multiple assignments for multiple classes. And so if I were given one assignment that I have 2 weeks to do and I don't have anything else, it's almost like I wouldn't do it until the final stretch, because that's the environment that I'm used to. I'm used to feeling that pressure, and anything prior to that, the pressure is not there, and therefore the impetus to act on it isn't there. Now, I know being proactive is better. I have made that mistake countless times, but that's where I think a lot of that really stems from, is being ingrained at an early age to deal with high pressure and fearing not just failing the class, but the embarrassment in front of your peers, letting down the authority figures. I don't know about how things were in your neck of the woods, but here in Canada, I don't think people were ever held back. So a lot of it really was just avoiding embarrassment. It should have been in the interest of learning, but that doesn't always come across when kids are sent off to the institutions to struggle and survive for 5 days a week, not really understanding how it all goes. I'm not the biggest fan of the education system, if I didn't make that clear.
No, I'm not either. Yeah.
Yeah. the
That's a
the
whole other conversation.
that's a whole other show.
Yeah, yeah.
The other part that stuck out to me the most from Roseanne's story is those three words: let them go. Her memories, that she was able to let them go. And I'm just completely mystified by how that's possible, honestly. How does a person do it? Is it just saying it out loud in a certain way that changes how we think about it? Is there actually like a little like rewire that goes on in the brain that says, okay, that neural pathway has been there long enough. Let's move that bridge somewhere else. I just don't know how that works. And I think that's one of the most important things that people need to know how to do.
How to do it. Yeah. You can't think it away. You
Yeah.
just can't. And when these events happen to us that cause us pain or emotional distress, we store these events in the cells of our body, and we try to, as humans, we try to think through them. We try to push them away. And, you push them away, or you think you're pushing them away, and they don't go. They just come back. So in the process that I use with core repatterning is we identify where they're stored in the body, because they're in our cells. They are, and they get triggered, and we have a full body response. So, it could be in your heart, it could be in your throat. A lot of people who have a hard time speaking, they've got a lot of trauma in their throat, from feeling like they're just not good enough, or what they had to say didn't matter. So their throat, their heart, their belly. I had one woman, everything. She had a very traumatic life. She is now a very successful tech executive. But she said, Lynn, I finished the day. She's a VP of a tech company. And she said, I finished the day and my butt hurts so much. I'm like, why does your butt hurt? Are you sitting too much? She's like, no, I clench it. I clench my butt whenever I'm stressed. And by the end of the day, I get home and I'm just like, oh my goodness. And so we we went through all of the things that happened to her. And the first thing I ask is, where do you feel it in your body? And
Mm-hmm.
she would say, my butt. I'm like, okay, focus on your butt and keep your mind there. And so there's so that's part of it, where we are focusing on the sensation, wherever that is. And for her, she just immediately clenched her butt cheeks when she relived the moment. And then you keep your awareness on it. And either me or my practitioners, we would help her to say what needed to be said that was not said when it happened or afterwards. We have a lot of things that go on in our head. The same thoughts might happen in our head 1,000 times, but we don't actually get them out. And
Mm-hmm.
so, things like I'm so angry, or I'm so embarrassed, or I can't believe that she did that to me, or I hate that person, or whatever those feelings are, whatever they are. And then we say them 3 times. There's a magic when you say things 3 times. And so we say each one 3 times
Mm-hmm.
with her focusing on her butt cheeks. And then we would also say things like, this is no longer part of my identity. This is no longer part of my identity. And I give myself permission to release it. So we go through a whole protocol to release it. And then we bring in her light, her wholeness in through her body, and it washes it away. And it's not that she's going to forget what happened. She won't forget the memory. What
Mm-hmm.
she will do is not have the emotional charge on it anymore. And that's the key.
What astounds me about it is, and it can connect to this to something that I learned a couple of years ago, is that our brain is not just in our skull. Our brain is our whole body. That's our nervous system. Our brain is everywhere. And so for something to be stored in different parts of the body, this is the first that I've really come to understand that. I mean, my back hurts right now, but I always thought that was because of this one day I worked at HomeSense where I had to lift rugs all day, and I didn't, when you get like time pressure to move enough rugs, but then you have to do it carefully, and maybe I leaned a little bit more into time pressure, so that was bad for my back. But you never know, right? Like this pain can come from a lot of different places, and that's definitely the most crystallized I've ever gotten to answering that question. It's like, how do you actually let something go, and what is the skills and the training involved?
The last part of it is bringing that part of your soul that broke off in that moment back.
This is something that I had wanted to ask. This was part of the scripted portion of this conversation, which is, were there any iterative steps that you had to take in developing this process when you became a coach? Like, were there like phases or versions, or maybe what were some of the recalibrations that you had learned early on that have brought you to the point that you're at now?
It was so interesting because every single time I worked with somebody, I just prayed. I just said, please show me a way to pull the whole onion out. And I never gave up. And it probably took about 6 months. And finally, one day it just came through. So there was no iterative process. It was just a download. I was just told, you do this now. And now you do this. And now you do this. That was it. And in fact, that's what happened with the group work that I do. It was really funny. I was watching the Katy Perry firework video. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's one of those videos where, music videos where there's fireworks coming out of her chest, and she's just being her true self, and she's letting it shine. And then she's igniting the light of a lot of other people. And then by the end of the video, everybody is shining their light. And I was watching this and I just started crying, thinking, I am not shining my light enough. And what do I do? What do I do? Come on, help me out. Help me out. Let me do my work in the world. And I just got this message that said, get a pen and paper, with this really low voice. And I'm like, okay. And I got a pen and paper, and boom, 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 boom. And it outlined my whole program. And that was so cool. So when you're really in the moment, when you're really present, and when you really want something, I believe that it comes through if you're open to.
I'll share how that happened with me, and I want to do this briefly because I don't necessarily want to be that guy who's always like, oh, I'm gonna make this about me for the next 10 minutes. But the story that I told you that I was working on is a story that I technically completed 25 years ago when I drew it on a scrapbook in grade 8. And I wanted to retell that story. And for a long, long time, it was always, different versions of it always were dramatic in nature. I always wanted to lean into the dramatic side, and I never wanted to go through with it. But then I finally thought about how I can turn it into a comedy instead. And then everything started flooding into my brain. Then everything started coming together. Not to say that there wouldn't ever be dramatic moments, because even the funniest comedies have to have their serious moments for the sake of the plot. But yeah, that's kind of how it worked out for me, is realizing it's taken me a long time to be ready to do it, but now I'm ready to do it. So I think the iterative process is maybe not always as calculated as, okay, this is version 1, cut this, cut that, do this, do that. But it is also just about the accumulative lived experience and how all of that information is stored in our body, in our brain, and our best people are working on it in the background. And when the time is right, we can receive that information.
I think you're right. In fact, I know you're right. I know you're right. And what's so interesting is that, a lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for everything that we have learned and all of the life experiences that we have had. And yeah, Yeah.
We're closing in on an hour, so I've only got so much time left, but I I don't know if I'll be able to ask everything that I've got to ask, but this is typically a question that comes up earlier on in the program, but it's as good a time to ask as any, regardless. Is that you were a commercial printing executive for 20 years, and in that time, did you develop any skills that continue to serve you as a coach?
Listening and
Mm-hmm.
having empathy. I was the psychologist. um, in that time, and I was in sales. I was in sales and sales management. And at that time, I was really nervous in front of three people. Public speaking or just hmm, being with more people than just one or two was just
Mm-hmm.
a lot for my nervous system. And so I ended up being top in my business by working with one person at a time and really getting to know them and really caring about them and seeing the best in them. And what I realized is that what made me feel the best was to have them feel the best. And so, what could I see in them? What did I see in them that they might not know that's special? And I would tell them. And in fact, that's something that I use today in my program, you know, and that is when I've got the group program going, every single time somebody speaks, we don't critique. We don't critique because what happens when you're critiqued is that your brain will always think that they're going to judge me. Those people are going to judge me. And that's the whole reason that they're coming to a public speaking class is to get over their fear of being judged. And so I don't do that. Instead, what we do, in fact, the whole small group will acknowledge a speaker. What is it that we see in you? Are you generous? Are you genuine? Are you happy? Are you displaying leadership qualities? Are you um, radiant, magnetic? Whatever it is. What do we see in them? And then they take those words in, like they literally have to speak them out loud. I'm radiant. Okay, I'm radiant, And I actually also have them say, "Yes, you're right. I am radiant. Yes, you're right. I am magnetic." And really have it kind of go into their cells so that they reinforce the positive. And so I learned that way back when in the printing industry, because it was so important for me to have whoever I was with know that they were important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did sales in the luxury watch arena for about a year and a half until our business was closed down. They attempted to do a Canadian installation. They're in Germany, so I thank them for giving it a shot. Wish it could have gone on longer because the part that I really loved about sales was when we stopped talking about the product and just got to talking. I feel like that did a lot more for the well-being of the company than always just trying to like get to the pressure, gets to trying to close something. It was a great way because like the calls were all inbound, right? So the conversations were just coming to me. That was the part that I remember the most, and that was the part that I appreciate about sales is just talking. And then when people were asking about the product, which of course came up quite a bit, it was also that I would have to answer the same question repeatedly, but trying to figure out how to make it sound like I was saying it again for the first time is a little bit of the acting coming out. And that was also satisfying in its own way is, okay, I'm going to say something. I've said it 3 times today, 4 times today, 16 times this week, but this is the first time this person is going to hear it. And that's the important part.
Yes, and being so present as you're saying it. And because you created that relationship beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that you were able to put nuances in there that would relate to that person, that would really resonate with that person. And, and I have a feeling that you were a really, really good salesperson because you create rapport so quickly and people buy from people they like and people they trust.
I was a good sales service hybrid. I think like there are sales people who are they have more of like the hunter mindset where they're really good at getting out there and kind of going after the business, whereas because I was more inbound based, so we were more of like the nurturing style. So maybe not quite as many closes, but the closes that we did get were more valuable long term because the positivity that people associated with our work was there. So yeah, it was a great experience. The last thing that I wanted to actually, well, one thing that I wanted to know about you, and then there's our main closeout question is always the same, but from your long list of accolades, is that you spent 21 days in silence? Is that right? Like, how was that? Yeah.
I did. I took a 7-year sabbatical.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because I said that, when I was 40, I was going to be able to take off as long as I wanted to. And I actually did, which was crazy. So I took a 7-year sabbatical where every single day I just asked, who am I supposed to serve? And
Mm-hmm.
I would be guided to people or causes or animals that needed help. And I did that all around the world. And one of my dreams was to be in India and to really go deep you know, and become as conscious as I could be. And so I went to a place called Oneness University, and it's outside of Chennai,
Mm-hmm.
India. And we were in silence for 21 days. And it was quite the experience. It was hard. It was hard and it was beautiful and lived in a dorm with 20 other women. Yeah, but it was one of the most transformative things I've ever done, not speaking and
Mm-hmm.
being with yourself for that long. We would listen to lectures and do things, but we weren't allowed to talk. What was really funny though is we had a group of Americans and then we had a group of Italians, and the Italians are like blah 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 blah. They're talking, and everybody's like shh, 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 shh. They're not. It was so funny. But yeah, I managed to stay in silence for 21 days, which I highly recommend. I would love to do it again.
You didn't stub your toe like at any point, right? Like there were no instances where you were just like, go. Like it was, I wouldn't consider that cheating. That's just like an involuntary reaction, right? But like, was it, how stringent were they about just like no, no, nothing?
Well, no conversations,
No
right?
conversation. Okay.
Yeah. So if you stubbed your toe and you're like, ow,
Hmm.
that's okay. That's
Yeah.
totally okay. But it's just keeping the conversation within yourself. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in that process, you're able to unwind a whole lot. And there were hundreds of us meditating together, which was also really, really powerful. So, we learned breathing techniques and meditation techniques and techniques to really help channel the light through us and through other people, to help them heal
Hmm.
emotionally, physically, spiritually. And yeah, I have to say that I finished that experience, and for a year and a half, I did not get upset about anything.
Hmm.
I felt like I was walking on a cloud for a year and a half, even though I came back to the Bay Area and I was back into my normal life. I was just like, life is so beautiful. Everything is
Hmm.
so beautiful. So it was this state of being that I wish everyone could feel. And, I would love to go back there again and again and again.
I, I mean, there's definitely more that I could be asking you about today. There was other things that I had written, but my philosophy is always run out of time, never run out of questions, and so that's me living by that. So we do got to wrap this up, but the final question for you as sort of a future facing one is in two parts. What are your day-to-day challenges right now? And it can go either way. It could be high-minded, but it can also be granular if there's technical things that you're looking to work on. And then the second part is, in 5 years, what do you see unfolding for you?
Hmm. So day to day, it's staying focused and yeah, and not letting the emergencies in the moment take me off track. And producing more videos and producing a more of an evergreen product that will be sustaining. And because most everything I've done up till this point has been live in person, or live and on Zoom. And so producing those. And my goal is really and my mission is to spread this work around the world. We do have people coming from all over the world to do this work. And my dream is to have a couple of hundred leaders running their own Yes, You Can Speak businesses and helping hundreds or thousands of individuals find their voice and find their heart and find their place of service. Because when we are living in our heart, when we are living connected to each other and being in service rather than being afraid of what people are going to think of us, that's how we change the world. And just becoming more and more conscious of our place here. And it may or may not be about money. It's really about the relationships that we cultivate and the things that we create together and the love that we share. And so spreading kindness, spreading love. So in my program, when somebody speaks, I told you that we appreciate who they are as a speaker and as a human. Mm-hmm. And what I do when they're in person is I literally have cut out hearts. I hand cut out these hearts out of construction paper, and I write their appreciations on the heart, and I give them a love note. And before they get their acknowledgments, I say, okay, are you ready to be loved up? And they're like, okay. And I have them say, love me up, everybody. So they'll say, love me up, everybody, so that they get used to receiving that love. And then I give them the heart. And then they put it on their wall. They put it on their mirror so that they remember who they are. And one of my big dreams is to have people on street corners that have done this work, or maybe haven't even done this work, but want to see the best in other people. And they'll have little hand cut out hearts, maybe really tiny, and they will walk up to people or have a sign that says, would you like to be acknowledged today? Or find out who you are, or would you like to be loved up? Whatever it is, but have them come and have that other person connect with them. And then within a moment or two, they will write down 2 or 3 words of appreciation that they see in the eyes of that person in front of them. Mm-hmm. And then share it with them and just look them in the eyes and say, you are a bright light. You are magnificent. I believe in you. And give that to them. And then give them a few blank hearts to take away so that they can pay it forward. And I feel like if everybody just did that a little bit, our whole world would be different.
Mm-hmm. It's not easily reachable, but for some reason, I carry my social insurance number card on me wherever I go because I have a hard time remembering that number, and yet every so often I need it. And there was this homeless lady who I'm afraid I don't really see her around much, but then again, I'm not in Toronto much anyways. And she would do that. She handed out little heart stickers on people, and I still have those heart stickers on that card to this day. And it was a great moment for me when I saw her again after a couple of years, and she wanted to hand me another heart, and I said, just so you know, I still have the last one that you gave to me. So little gestures like that do resonate, and it does go a long way, and it just speaks to the power of light and of love, and how it only takes a sliver of light to cast darkness out of a room. And that's what I want to leave us with today.
Oh, beautiful. And I'd love to give you a love note. May I?
Sure. I would love to hear it.
So, Joseph, you are generous, you're empathetic, you are an extraordinary conversationalist. And you are, it's hard to put words to it. You're soulful. This is who you are to me.
I would like to give you one in return. You are as pure a manifestation of light that I have seen, and I have talked to quite a few people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You hit me in the heart.
Bullseye. With that, if there is anything else that you wanted to share today as the result of this conversation / transformation, the floor is yours once more. Otherwise, feel free to let the audience know how they can connect with you.
Yeah. So, thank you. You can connect with me at yesyoucanspeaknow.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram. And yeah, if you're curious about finding what the root cause is of what's stopping you, I'd love to help you figure it out and quickly get over it, have it behind you so that you can live the life you're meant to live and get to the end of your life or near the end and say, wow, I did it. Mm-hmm. I feel fulfilled. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we're recording this on 12/19/2023, so Christmas is a little early this time, but I will take it nonetheless. So that is everything that we're going to do today. This has been another episode of the Impactful Coaching Podcast. Emphasis on impactful. And, you know, once upon a time, I might have been more, I might have lamented how many people are fortunate to, at one point, go to a factory, pull a lever for 40 hours a week, and then get to buy a house. But the work that I do on a day-to-day basis is challenging, but it is also much more fulfilling. And this has been a peak example of that fulfillment. So I really thank you for your time today. And yeah, I don't know what else I can really say at this point. It's just there's a lot of absorption going on. But for those of you who enjoy this episode, there's lots more to come, and we've definitely built up a lot of great episodes up to this point. So we hope that you'll check it out, and we hope that you'll reach out. Again, it is Joseph at impactfulcoachingpodcast.com. Joseph is spelled Joseph. The rest is spelled the way you would expect. So it is our endeavor to ensure that in whatever way you are trying to impact others, we want you to be the best you can be.